Hello and welcome back to the Northern Roses YouTube channel. I'm Henry North, a freelance journalist from Manchester, joined by Dr. Adam North.
Hi everybody.
This week we wanted to talk a little bit about what we thought the biggest news stories of the week were and a little bit more about what we've been doing and what's to come. So this week I decided that the setup for the episode is going to be we have two main stories each that we wanted to discuss and why we're going to talk about why we really thought they were relevant.
Yep.
So, I'll start. How about okay, yeah. So, for me, I thought one big story with us being in Manchester was that the New Statesman on their YouTube, for all the stories that we'll do, we'll link them into the bio below so people can have a read. So, the story, it was a YouTube video from their podcast or whatever it is that they do, and they said that Andy Burnham is the favourite for the PM, future Labour leader. People are, it's no secret, is it, that people are fed up with the current leadership, and Andy Burnham was leading the polls, and the way that they would then do that, because for those of you that aren't aware or don't know, Andy Burnham's not actually a Member of Parliament, is he? Because he's the Mayor of Manchester. So for Andy Burnham to then be the leader of the Labour Party, he'd have to become a Member of Parliament.
Yeah. Although it would be interesting to know if there's actually any precedent for I guess David Cameron became the Foreign Secretary under the previous Conservative government without being an MP. He was just in the House of Lords. So it'd be interesting to know. But we would assume he would most definitely have to become an MP to then run for the Labour leadership, or become Labour leader and then become an MP. But either way, he would have to be. We would imagine he would have to become an MP before attempting to be PM.
Yeah, and the way that he would do that would be to run for Gorton and Denton, because the current MP for Gorton and Denton was a Labour MP and now an independent. He's called Andrew Gwynn, and he was sacked by Labour for wishing death upon a 72-year-old pensioner who was complaining about the bins. And
I'd like to see that conversation. You know, how did it escalate from bin complaint to I wish you death?
Well, I think it was in a WhatsApp group chat with current Labour
must have been a terrible bin problem.
just bizarre. And then to make things even stranger, he's made racial comments about Diane Abbott during Black History Month and sexist remarks about Angela Rayner.
So he's he's a loose cannon. Yeah,
probably reform candidate material.
Yeah, likely to be quickly taken into reform.
Yeah,
like a Neanderthal, that kind of figure.
Yeah, very much suits the bill. And then we'll be hearing something from him probably in a year or two's time saying how you can't say anything anymore. But so a pretty nasty piece of work. That is the opportunity that the New Statesman were. And
in this story, did they talk about why Burnham is popular? Like, why do you think he's polling so highly? Maybe what his achievements are.
Yeah, it was quite interesting really, because they talked about how, because he's still, I guess, part of the Labour Party, but he's insulated a little bit from what's going on in Westminster at the moment. So he can kind of say, well, look at all this good work I'm doing in Manchester and managing to stay away from a lot of the problems. So, for example, two of the main things that I think have caused a lot of issues is the winter fuel payment and the planned cuts to disability payments.
Yeah.
And Burnham can kind of hold his hands up and go like nothing to do with that.
I think he may have also criticised the winter payment cut as well. So he can, as a sort of independent, semi-independent mayor, he can freely criticise the government, even though he's part of the party.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? And they also took a kind of look at the trends of how city mayors do really quite well when they convert into kind of national politics. So you look at Boris Johnson being a big example of it recently, And then Andy Street had a lot of momentum in Birmingham, didn't he, at the time?
Yeah,
and
well, there was talk of Andy Street running for Conservative leadership as well, based on his popularity.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a road that's kind of being trodden now. So yeah, and Andy Burnham as well, I think you can kind of come over it from like a Manchester point of view. So it's not as much as like anti-establishment as such.
Yeah,
but he can come at it saying like, I'm a breath of fresh air, I think.
Well, I think Andy Burnham, one of his biggest wins in the past 5 years or so was this idea that the North is being disproportionately punished in COVID lockdowns compared to London, and this idea that there is unfair treatment of the North compared to the South. And, I've heard Andy Burnham say things like, he was talking about the price of buses to Westminster Labour politicians, and he would say, this is how much a bus in Manchester costs, and they had complete disbelief. They had no idea that bus prices were so expensive. And so I think Andy Burnham does seem, to many people, especially in the North, as somebody who represents their interests, especially when in the North and what was once the Red Wall, there is this disaffection with politics.
Yeah.
So Andy Burnham could potentially draw back some of those voters who may be considering reform, but actually Andy Burnham is one of those more established politicians who they see can still represent their interests.
And I think from Andy's point of view, I mean, it'd be great to speak to him, but I think he ran for the Labour leadership and lost out to Corbyn.
Yeah.
So
and he's previously held cabinet positions in the past, so he has previously showed ambition or interest in, normally to go through these positions shows that you would be interested in the top job. Yeah.
Even though he did say that he was over it, dangle the carrot.
I don't know if you'll ever be over it.
It's true. So I think that is really something to look out for, and I think does have legs.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see where that goes, and I'm sure the conversation won't disappear, especially while Starmer's approval rating is kind of on the floor.
Yeah. So but then to really take it that little bit further, it kind of asks the question of where does the vacuum of Andy Burnham, or what does he leave behind? What does that mean for the Mayor of Manchester, that role?
Well, I think before we do that, maybe we say, do we think Andy Burnham has been successful? Because one of the things about mayors is their powers are not entirely clear to voters. I think it would be safe to say that many of us don't actually know where the limits of mayoral authority lie. So is Andy Burnham, has he been a success within the power that he has? I would say there are certain things he's done that seem to suggest so, like nationalising the buses, or making the buses under the authority of the Greater Manchester Authority has been a success, because privatised buses simply didn't work. They were expensive and they were not efficient. And we've talked about privatisation versus public ownership before, but also things like, again, the COVID response. Andy Burnham is always he's always seen as positively contributing towards reducing homelessness in Manchester. Although I think anyone who lives in Manchester knows that it's not perfect, actually, and there are lots of issues with homelessness that, especially now, seems to have increased. But can you think of any maybe achievements?
Well, I think the homelessness in particular is quite it's a layered topic, that one, because from what I've heard is that a lot of people hear that Manchester has a good reputation, so homeless from around the country will come to Manchester, because sometimes you do hear it. People will speak, or homeless people in Manchester will speak with a southern accent. So not that I know anything about their circumstances, but it does make you think. So maybe that.
Maybe Manchester has a blueprint. If it has been successful, has a blueprint for how to again, as we talked about in the previous episode, how locally you have a success that then you need to apply nationwide. Yeah. So maybe Manchester is an example of that. But yeah, it's an interesting point that whether because Manchester is successful, other homeless people see Manchester as a place to go to that may help them from there. But obviously it only has a finite amount of resources.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a difficult
something we can maybe discuss in a future.
Well, episode. Yeah, there's we've been trying to work a little bit to.
We have, yeah.
Yeah,
and we'll
talk
keep
about
doing
that. Yeah. Has Andy Burnham been a success?
I would say public perception-wise, for sure, but in terms of actual policy implementation or acting within the limitations of his authority and power, this is something that I think we'll tease for a future episode to say we will consider, has Andy Burnham succeeded?
Yeah. My little worry about Burnham a little bit is that he tells you what you want to hear. He's a politician at the end of the day. So he'll shake your hand and he'll agree with you.
Yeah.
But does that always translate to action? I don't know.
Yeah, so potentially it could be perception versus actual impact.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to discuss more and find more about, and we'll do that.
Yeah. So then moving on, kind of looking ahead to Andy Burnham leaving the mayoral office. What happens then for Manchester? Now, there are some concerns that the reform, I guess, machine will then put a candidate up and they will be successful. And then you're kind of thinking, well, has Andy Burnham actually left Manchester in a good position at that point? We don't know. We wouldn't like to think that Manchester could be a city that would vote reform, but there are certainly little, I guess, teasers or aspects of Manchester out there that, you know, would seem to suggest that they would. You know, people are going after asylum seekers or asylum hotels in this city, and, you know, all the well, it's not all of them, but people have been painting the odd roundabout here, I think.
Yeah, well, putting the flags out, you know, to use the language that's become quite popular now, but quite crude, is the flag shaggers. People who will say, you know, the idea that you can't have an English flag anymore, or, you know, something about the flag is super patriotic and show it's really, it comes from a place of like unquestioning and unwavering love of the country, which I think we all love England and we all want it to be the best country, but it's not a blind kind of look how perfect it is. It's a position of we love the country, but there are things wrong and we want to make them better. We want to make it a country that's a better place to live in, because it's never been perfect. It's never been this ideal state that is a utopia. And obviously utopias don't exist, but we all can work to hopefully make it a better place for future generations and for ourselves going forward. And that's what, you know, I would think any reasonable person would want. And in fact, I think these sort of patriots, so-called patriots, want the UK to be a better place, but they misdiagnose the cause of the problem by saying, you know, it must be people of colour, rather than saying, actually, it's the siphoning off of resources to those, the ultra-rich, rather than redistributing it among communities that need it most.
Yeah, to be honest, I find it quite funny, the thought of a granddaughter asking the grandparents or the granddad, what did you do to make the country a better place? I painted a roundabout.
Yeah, I hung some flags off a motorway bridge.
Did a really shabby job of painting a zebra crossing.
I shouted abuse at migrants in a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Certainly better ways of going about your business than that. So yeah, we don't like to think that Manchester could become a reform city, but, you know, there's a chance. So
yeah, and I think that brings me to, again, because one of the things about news media now is actually most people are not getting their news directly from traditional or legacy news outlets like The Guardian, the BBC, the various other media networks, Reuters, Associated Press. But one of the stories I have is I'd say it's a kind of pseudo news event, a YouTube video, how comedy was destroyed by anti-reality Doomsday cult, which discusses kind of Joe Rogan and his sphere of podcasters and comedians and how they are able to influence people's opinions and politics. They see themselves as, say, anti-establishment and sort of discussing things that aren't talked about in the mainstream media whilst being mainstream media. They have more views and listens than all of these traditional big media companies. So for me, they are incredibly important to consider. And this YouTube video does a really good job of deconstructing exactly what's going on in this sort of right-wing ecosystem. So I'd really recommend it because I think it helps us to understand what's going on and to say, actually, this is not just a US problem, but it's also a UK problem. Like Joe Rogan is incredibly popular within the UK, and there will be a number of people around you at any time who will have listened or will have watched some of Joe Rogan and some of the people on these podcasts, and they will influence how they think about things. So the better we can engage with what's going on, the more power, the more knowledge it gives us with. And that's the thing, it's not fighting people who like this or consume this content. It's about understanding what about it appeals to them. And in many cases, it's trying to escape the difficulties of just day-to-day existence. And again, this comes into these patriots, so-called patriots who believe every problem is caused by people of colour, is that they actually do have real grievances and real problems in their lives that actual policy and actual government should deal with, which is, wealth inequality is really the problem at the heart of most of it. But yeah, how Joe Rogan was captured by corporate interests, by the billionaires like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and now he puts out these very messages that they want the public to believe, which is anti-migration, rather than taxing these billionaires who, like Peter Thiel, he believes that we need some kind of massive crisis that kills, billions of people so that we can start again.
Yeah, like a reset.
A big reset.
But then, who's going to come out?
Well, exactly, and then the world's controlled by tech autocrats, because he doesn't believe that democracy works as a form of government.
Kind of like how the fall of the USSR, and then you get your likes of Abramovich coming out on top, just like these oligarchs.
Yeah, because
to take over state.
It became lawless, and everything was seized by those with power. And suddenly, actually, you didn't get a flourishing democracy because power was concentrated in the hands of few.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, a democracy only works if power is distributed among numerous actors. Because then if lots of people have a small amount of power, that prevents concentrated power that exploits people or is able to have an unfair share of power through which they can act in their own interest.
And it's kind of, Russia, I think, is quite a poignant point because they, Rogan's band, they kind of look up to Russia.
They love Russia.
Yeah, and you're thinking, well...
They hate Ukraine.
They hate Ukraine, but who's responsible for the basic kidnapping of tens of thousands of Ukrainian children?
Who's responsible for the war?
The
special operation to remove Nazis from Ukraine, even though Zelensky is himself Jewish.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so just to link to that, there is a article on The Conversation. The Conversation is a media outlet that's mainly contributed to by academics, called Why People Embrace Conspiracy Theories, which we'll link as an article, and is quite a good follow-up as well to say it is this feeling of community that people want and can't really access. It's hard to access community now in many cases, and how that's what conspiracy theories offer. They offer this space where you feel part of a movement, which is exactly, I think, what Joe Rogan has harnessed so well.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the whole comedy thing, isn't it? Like, oh, I wasn't being that serious anyway.
It's just a joke.
It's just a joke.
Just a joke.
Just a joke. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of their comedy is kind of punching down at people. So they talk about migrants and stuff, and then you kind of see what ICE have been doing in the US, and then people sitting up and going, "Oh, actually, this is not nice. I'm not enjoying this at all."
Yeah.
You know, seeing how they're treating like pretty marginalised people.
Yeah, because this is something I'm working on, and I should have hopefully a piece in the conversation by the time that you are listening or watching this about the effects of comedy in politics. But I think one of the problems is that comedy was always seen as a subversive tool. It was used by those without power to laugh at those with power and to show how pathetic these people with power are and how unable they are to see themselves in a humorous lens. But it's been used the other way now. And we see actually those with power using it to say, you know, they're basically just mocking those without power. And it's never punching up. So Joe Rogan's never mocking Elon Musk. He's never mocking Peter Thiel or the billionaires, really. It's always aimed at those with no power.
Like trans people.
Exactly, a big target of women even.
Women, yeah.
Women, migrants, people of colour.
And fundamentally as well, what for me it boils down to, it's just not funny.
Well, I think it's funny for some people, and that's the problem, is that it depends on your moral and ethical framework. Like, it depends on how you view the world, is whether you'll find it funny or not. And that's it. What it's important to understand is that people who maybe don't understand that those people at the bottom of the hierarchy don't have power to change their material situation, don't have power to say, you know, that's offensive and that's... if you don't see the world through that lens of power, then, you know, you can just find it funny. Just like at school, people will find bullying funny. They'll say, oh, because they don't see that those who are being bullied maybe don't have the power to fight back, don't have the power to change the situation, and that they don't have the voice to say, this is something that we find really offensive and is harming us.
Yeah. Well, I think the channel is called Elephant's Graveyard.
Yeah.
And he's done a few videos on Joe Rogan and comedy and how it's being used for political gain. Yeah. So, yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah.
And there will be a link in the description.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah. So, moving on.
Yeah.
The next story that I wanted to really pick out was that it was from The Big Issue, and a slightly sensationalist headline, but which read, "Millions of pupils missing school due to hygiene poverty. We have reinvented a Victorian problem." So yeah, and the story was kind of based around two main statistics. One of them being 23 million estimated days of school learning lost each year as a consequence. And it's had a 68% year-on-year increase in state school teachers reporting instances of pupils experiencing hygiene poverty. Not good. No.
And again, it all comes from effectively growing inequality. Yeah. Is that you start to see within schools children experiencing greater levels of being unable to get the meals they need. So you need more free school meals because people have less simply less money to buy the things they need. But even certain things like school uniforms, which were seen as these great equalizers. So in schools, when children can wear their own clothes are a sign of status and hierarchy. So the children who maybe have the most expensive clothes, it's a show of we have more.
Yeah. And
the children who maybe are from families with less, maybe they're wearing hand-me-downs or the clothes are not new, they're second-hand maybe, they might be bullied for that. And that was an experience within schooling. So uniforms were brought in to try and equalise that. But now we see that uniforms are costing parents £200 or more. They're costing parents who already don't have money to put food on the table a ridiculous amount. So actually the school uniforms failed. And schooling environments are so fragmented into basically spaces of spaces to like assert some different kinds of hierarchies, and they are rife for bullying. In fact, the whole school system needs reform, but no political party really wants to touch it because it's such a difficult and contentious job.
Yeah.
But it all boils down to really, is there the money to tackle these problems?
Well, there is, isn't it? But it's how you raise it. So.
Yeah, it's how you access it.
Yeah.
Money exists within the economy, plenty of money, but the real fight now is the government able to access it and redistribute it? And I think it's unsurprising that there's a massive increase of anti-immigration rhetoric just before the next budget, in which Rachel Reeves begins talking about tax rises for the very wealthy. So you see that as our society starts to recognise that maybe increased wealth taxes is needed to fix the problems, because immigrants have been demonised for basically as long as the states existed, but it's never fixed it by crushing immigration or demonising it. So you start to see that conversation increase, but at the same time, the right-wing press ramps up its discussion of immigration to force you to shove it down your throat and say this is the problem.
Yeah. So I thought that story from The Big Issue was quite a good example of how wealth inequality is kind of manifesting itself, and it's children, isn't it?
Yeah. It's children. And in many cases, the people on the right are saying it's always about protecting children. Yeah. Well, here is a clear example of children in poverty. Every day is a struggle, but they don't care about them.
No. Marcus Rashford pays for school meals and gets demonised.
Yeah, Marcus Rashford is a great example.
He's actually doing something.
A heroic figure in British culture, demonised by the right. It is crazy because, and also then criticised for taking his eye off the ball in football because he wanted to help children get out of poverty. Even if that, I don't even believe that's the case because there was enough problems at Manchester United. But the fact that they considered his taking his eye off the ball in football enough reason to say stop bothering with dealing with child poverty is disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So the next story I wanted to discuss was really about the environment and how currently there seems to be a big push against climate change, again, Joe Rogan's Sphere kind of thing. But there's been a documentary on BBC Two, Disaster at Sea, which is about an oil spill. And we recently watched Deepwater Horizon as well, which is about the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And I would just suggest the more we know about these environmental disasters and the more we can realise that our own individual carbon footprint is not the solution here. It's pressure on these companies that the amount of carbon and the amount of damage they do to the environment probably equates to billions of times us as an individual can create. If we wanted to be the most climate unfriendly individuals that we could be, if we want to protect the environment, if we want to ensure that our children and our children's children can experience nature and not just experience a incredibly depleted environment, that we do need to become more and more aware of these things and pressure the government to make changes. Because one thing that I will tell you a reform government will do is cut funding to renewables, despite the fact that renewables are efficient, they are effective, and they are pretty cheap for actually what they provide.
And on quite a simple level, they're sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. But the first of all, because the right don't believe in climate change, but also they don't believe in evidence or facts or even really the idea that someone could be a sort of reputable scientist. They will try to reduce the legitimacy of what just seems like a straightforward, like renewables offers the opportunity for jobs, to bring jobs to areas, sustainability, like a healthy environment, because these renewables it's not like coal mines that reform would probably bring back, where people are killed or their lungs are destroyed and environments are made dirty and full of soot and all kinds of other disgusting environmental impacts. These renewables are in every way. I mean, the only negative people really have is to say they don't look good. So you hear Trump saying they ruin your views. I don't even think they look that bad, but if that's your only problem with them, I think that's much better than a coal mine or having, again, like these oil disasters that destroy entire coral reefs and wreck ecosystems.
Or just breathing in exhaust fumes that are slowly destroying your lungs.
Yeah, that basically reduce years of your life, which they do. Many studies have found that air pollution reduces years on your life.
I mean, like, the thing is, though, you can see it, or you can feel it yourself. Go and stand behind a car.
Yeah.
And see how you feel. Makes you feel good. No,
the funny
it doesn't.
Thing is,
so.
you go to a busy city and say you blow your nose and you've got black bogies.
Yeah.
That is enough to convince you that that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting black, sooty mucus from inside your nose, where do you think it's going? It's not just staying there; it's going into your bloodstream, into your lungs, into your body.
Yeah, you don't get that when you're on a little hike through Snowdonia, do you?
No, you go out in nature, and I think most of us know that the air quality is better.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's a problem with these anti-environmental people against the climate crisis. It's like they don't look with their own two eyes. They don't open their eyes.
Yeah.
But just one good anecdote is I was once told that one of my friends' dads didn't believe in climate change because he'd been going to Mallorca for 30 years and he'd never seen the sea level rise. Yeah. So he was looking with his own two eyes, to be fair. He'd never seen the sea level rise, so it cannot exist.
And that's science for you, isn't it?
Science. He'd been testing it every year. Eye level, looking out. It's not gone up.
But things at the tide must have changed, right? Anyway. Just one thing on the Joe Rogan is that he went on his podcast and he said that volcanoes emit more CO2 emissions than humans. And it was just blatantly not true. And he got fact-checked.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, not good when you have to get fact-checked by your own... Probably fired him after that, by your own team.
No, it was fact-checked from an external news source that listened to it and fact-checked
him. So even his own... Because he's got a guy, doesn't he, who works with him.
Yeah.
So he didn't fact-check it.
No.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, should we talk a little bit then about what we've been up to?
Sure. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I released a story last week on the Northern Rose about inertia and how this feeling of time passing but politics staying the same can lead to people like looking to want to believe in someone who's going to offer change. And I suggested that was Farage is seen as the opposition, isn't he? This idea of like, if you're not happy with how things are at the moment, look to Farage, and that maybe change is something that has to come from within the Labour Party if you're going to prevent Farage getting in. And also, I have been working with Manchester's mental health care group and I've done a series of interviews and collected testimony really about how they have been totally neglected from the state. And we had Dr. John Mulligan, a Unite representative, on here talking about his industrial action, about the treatment of these people. And yeah, I've spent time going to a group, and it'll be a podcast that you can listen to. So that should be really quite powerful, I hope, as you hear the people's story of how they've just been forgotten about. and it's shocking, really is. So yeah, that's to come.
Yeah, I think that story will be really interesting to hear about the kind of forgotten mental health crisis, or the kind of leaving it to just people with good hearts to deal with, rather than government intervention. I'll have a story in the conversation hopefully by the time you see or hear this, which is about how disaffected voters do not stop voting. They turn to radical alternatives who they think will be this kind of miracle cure. So just like Nigel Farage or Donald Trump. And I'm interested in the tactics that these politicians use. So how do they use humour and comedy to appeal to voters? And I think we see this a lot with various ways in which they focus on kind of sound bites and comedic stunts or clips to appeal to voters. So just as Boris Johnson would get stuck on a zip line or crash into a child in a rugby match, these are things that make voters laugh, gain their attention, and kind of build some positive feelings towards these politicians. And that's something that I think is a really powerful tool of populists who don't actually have the interests of the public in mind, but they are able to build support through comedy and humour. So that's something that I'm working on, and that's a project that's coming up in the next few months.
Yeah, why be interested in policy when you can have a good laugh?
Yeah, it's just about the memes, isn't it? It's just about the memes. If you can keep putting out deep fake videos or AI generated videos of you doing whatever you want, like Trump putting out the deep fake video of Gaza as this kind of amazing holiday destination, rather than actually doing anything to stop the complete destruction of Gaza. It's like a false reality that these right-wing politicians live in. And to go back to that Joe Rogan video, this is what we see now. And I think what the internet age has done is that it's very easy now to live in an alternate space rather than the real world. And for these multimillionaires and billionaires, they do not go out and see real issues in the world. They only see what social media algorithms push to them and what they put out there and what they want people to see and become aware of.
Yep. Trump can put himself as Superman while all the while placing tariffs on an island of penguins. Yeah. So that's an important one to remember. Just when you think if you're there thinking that Trump might have a level of competency to him, no, he doesn't. And he got absolutely rolled by Putin in Alaska. But there you go. I'm not sure if anyone will be watching this that is a fan of Trump. But, or maybe you are. I don't know. And you'll be leaving a comment.
A nice comment.
All right, then. Should we leave it for today? Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Should we